Michelle Sharp, and we have been friends for about 7, 8 years now.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah, and we've talked about various things over the years of our friendship, and as I learned more about her, learn more about her family, learn more about a lot of people in my life, I decided to start having conversations. And I have a few questions for Mimi, and you're going to hear us talk about it. So let's talk about it. So, Michelle, my first question for you, and I've been really prone to talk about race lately. I feel like it's a topic that not enough people are talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And my first question for you is, what does it mean to you to be a Black woman in America today?
So my first inclination to answer that is I'm a woman who happens to be Black.
Okay.
And I think obviously I have different experiences because I'm Black than probably a Caucasian woman or an Asian woman or European or Indian or whatever, but I think I am a woman first, and I am American, and I happen to be Black.
Uh-huh.
Now that does affect my experiences at times, maybe different than some other individuals, but a lot of it's the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that a commonly misdirected question, or you know what I'm saying?
No, I think it's a fair question.
Uh-huh.
I think it just depends on your experiences, and I think it depends on a lot of things, like where you grew up, how you grew up. You know, growing up in the Deep South is very different than growing up in southern, like Los Angeles, which is way more liberal, way more open. You know, I didn't grow up in segregation. I'm not of that generation,
Right.
so there's a lot of differences. I think it's a fair question. Because I do believe absolutely that there is a Black experience in this country, but I just see myself as a female that happens to be Black.
Okay. And my next question for you is, how do you feel you are received by your coworkers?
That is interesting. It has become more interesting in my recent work. So I'm in a very stereotypical, I shouldn't say stereotypical because that's not right, but I'm in a corporate environment. I'm in a tech environment. So it does fall along the stereotypical gender imbalance, highly male, highly white. So up until this experience, it hasn't really been an experience. You know, I was an educator for a long time, and I worked in a socioeconomically disadvantaged school. So all my students were brown or Black, right? So that wasn't weird. So it depends. I've come to have recent encounters and experiences where I'm like, this feels weird, right? Like where I don't necessarily go, oh, I got dismissed because I'm a female, or I got dismissed because I'm Black, but I definitely have had experiences where I'm like, I got dismissed because I'm female, and this is starting to feel, I'm feeling a little discounted at times, and I'm like, if it's not female, then it's got to be race, because it's definitely not quality or me being a subject matter expert in what I do, because that's not the issue.
And in your corporation company, you are on the higher tier of the
I am
umbrella.
in a leadership role.
And
I'm not the top leader, but in what I do. But
and how many women are there, and how many women of color are there in that?
Zero, but that is 0 women in general, so not just women of color.
Okay.
We have a very non-existent female leadership representation.
You are there.
I am, yeah. And there have been minority women, but it's not ever been sustainable.
Interesting.
They've left, or have there been like affected by reorgs, you know, things of that nature. So, but that is all. But that's just all. There's no female leadership.
And in the tech world, would you say that that's majority male, white male in general?
Yeah, that's just a lot of companies.
Yeah.
And unfortunately.
Yeah. What do you feel is the largest misconception about women in the workplace, and more specifically, Black women in the workplace?
So I think women in the workplace, there is a way that you have to engage with individuals. Like, I think we always have to think, like, how's this going to come off? Like, am I going to come off as emotional? Or if I'm assertive for a man means bitch for a woman. Passionate for a man means emotional for a woman. considerate for a man means sensitive for a woman. Like, I absolutely see that played out a lot, and sometimes there's grains of truth to that. Like, I have seen emotional women in the workplace, but I don't necessarily think being emotional is bad.
Yeah.
You know, it just means you're compassionate and caring, unless it delves into other areas of like emotional imbalance or something extreme. But I don't think that's not what we mean when we say that.
Right.
As far as being a Black woman, again, I do feel, I've started to feel somewhat overlooked.
Yeah.
And I've really started to take a step back. I don't have a lot to care about where I am either, so that's not very fair. I can't say, oh, well, she gets treated differently than I do, and she gets treated differently than I do, because like, it's me, right? Yeah. So I don't have a comparison, but I'm not ignorant, and I've been on this planet a long time, and there are definite situations where, hello, I'm here. Like, I run a very significant portion of the business, and people will go to my boss who heads over everything. And I'm like, he's not going to know the answer of what I run. Yeah. Like, I'm right here, and literally, like, we sit next to each other. And so I don't always know what to make of that, to be honest. Yeah. I mean, it could be racist, it could be sexist, it could just be like males, when you're in a highly concentrated workspace where a lot of people look like you, it could just be subconscious behavior. Like, I mean, I don't want to always think the worst, because there's probably several layers and probably several truths to all of that. Right. But it's interesting. He's great because he's like, she runs it, she's right here, ask her. But literally will walk.
He gives you that respect.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But literally will walk right past me and go to him, and I'm like, so the answer to that is, and the way we do that is this.
Interesting.
So that I'm starting to be more aware of, which has probably spawned some of like our conversations.
Yeah. Let's see. So who do you admire and why? Who do you most admire and why?
That is a loaded question, and I don't think I don't know that there's one person I most admire. So, like, you know, I'll go for what might be the obvious. Obviously, I admire somebody like Oprah, right? Like, just, I love everything about her and everything she's come to do. But, you know, then I admire people like my mom, who is a single parent. Yeah. I admire my daughters, who, like, are taking charge of their own lives. I admire, like, you. Thank you. You know, some of the things that we've, like, gone through together, and your journey to get you here. So there's definitely things about a lot of people that I admire, but if I had to sum it up, it would be people with courage. Yeah. I'll say women with courage, women that know their voice, women that know their worth. Yeah. Like, big time. Admire that big time. Yeah. Let's
see. Do you feel a prejudice amongst your own race that you are a light-skinned Black woman?
Definitely went through that. Okay. So we got stuff in our culture, right? So I probably felt that more in high school, to be honest, where it was I was always put on the defensive, like, oh, well, you think you're this and you think you're that, and I was like, well, like, I think you're the one that thinks that, and, you know, you're the one with the problem. So definitely had, you know, we have light skin, dark skinned issues within our race, you know, that probably go way back to slavery. If you were, you know, deemed acceptable and, you know, presentable and well spoken, you got to go in the house. But it's like, hello, still a slave. Like, everybody was still property, and you know
what was happening in that house.
And what was happening in that house, right? You know, so but that's where it began in our culture, right? But that's where it began. You know, you got to wear finer clothes and maybe sleep in a bed, but at the end of the day, you were still property. You were no better than your brother, sister, cousin, friend out in the field. Yeah. But that perpetuated probably this kind of vicious cycle that's within the community. So I definitely experienced stuff in high school, you know, but that's also people being young and people being immature and people being a product of their environment. Where I do see it flip in adulthood is, I'd say for me and my daughters, we probably don't have the experiences, if we're going to be honest, that like my chocolate sister might have, right? Because a lot of people spend a lot of time even trying to figure out what I am, which is
And I was
Like,
going to ask you that
Yeah.
because you must get all the time, what are you?
drives me crazy. And I've learned to discern the what are you. Like, sometimes it's just honestly people being like, hey, what are you? Like, I can't figure this out, right? But where it's annoying is when it's like, I'm black. Well, no, I get that, but like, what else? And I'm like, black.
Yeah.
Like, sorry to disappoint you.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of that.
Yeah.
And then I've had situations where people almost want to give me preferential treatment. So it's like, well, you're not like them. I'm like, no. See, I've never been down with that.
Yeah.
So I don't have, so I had to fight that more as a young girl with other females behind probably just stupid female, young, immature, catty shit. And then I've had to remind people that you don't get to treat me special because I don't fall into your poor negative stereotype. Like, I'm actually not flattered.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually could give a shit.
Yeah.
I've had friends be like, oh, well, my parents like you because you're not really black. And I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. And I won't be coming to your house anymore. And, you know, in my family, my family never talked about, like, race or skin tone or light skin, or like you'll hear like the good hair, bad hair thing. I hate that shit. Like, we just never, like, we were just who we were.
Yes.
We just looked like how we looked. And we spoke how we spoke, and we lived where we lived, and we've just always identified as black because that's how this world treats us.
Yeah.
And
I remember you educated me years ago when we were talking about the what are you conversation, and how people would say to you, oh, you don't look black, or like, what else are you, or whatever, as if black should look a certain way,
or as it's discounted.
Yes.
And because it's like yeah, like I'm like some special snowflake or something.
Right.
So if I did look black, whatever that means to you,
Yes.
then what would this be?
Yes. And I remember thinking, gosh, that's interesting. Like I can see how insulting.
It is insulting. So it's almost like I'm special because I don't I don't fit into this category of their stereotype that you think. And it's like, if you ever like looked at the culture, we span the color, you know, like we span from very, very light to extremely dark, and all shades are absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
And light doesn't necessarily always mean mixed.
No.
Or biracial.
Yeah.
Or like, it just is genetics, right?
Yeah.
Genetics do their thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that question really like bothers me a lot because it's again, I've learned to just kind of discern it, like when it's just a natural like curiosity or inquisitiveness, like I just can't quite figure it out because you have this ambiguous look, right? And but then people are like, oh, when she opens her mouth, you'll figure it out, right? So it's okay. It's an okay question to ask, but it's the energy and the spirit and the intent about it that isn't always cool. And I have found that it messes with people. Like, I can watch it mess with them because they feel some kind of way, normally and generally, that they're not feeling with me, and it's messing with them. And I actually love that.
Oh, sure.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's for you to work out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love it. If you had one thing to do over again, what would it be?
I would definitely, and this is something I've learned in corporate America, I would definitely have been more directed. I would have had more of a North Star for my career. Something I've noticed, and with what I do in the population that I serve, is that there is an upbringing, and I'll just say Caucasian just for conversation, just for conversation, but it could happen in any race, so I'm not discounting that. But there is definitely an upbringing and a raising of that group of individuals where it's like you have a North Star towards like school and education and career. For the most part, again, I'm talking generalities here, but it's just something that I've observed. Like, I'm a recruiter, so it's something that I've observed in all my interviewing with people and how directed and how like North Star they were. And because of that, and because of probably a familial history of privilege, connections, schooling, those types of things benefit them even before they're prepared, right? So meaning I get so many throughout my career, not just where I am now, like, hey, the boss's son is about to graduate. Can you give him an interview? Hey, are you looking to, I see this role, you know, my best friend is, you know, my golf buddy's son or daughter, those types of things. So there is an advantage to education and career pathing that young people get just by privilege, just by association. And where I say where I would make it different, like, I don't have that. I don't have a CEO mom or dad that's saying, hey, Michelle's just about to graduate school, which means we just have to work that much harder.
Right.
And which means, you know, you have to just be more directed and more thoughtful about where you want to go in life. And I didn't just let life happen. I wasn't that carefree, but I did. Like, I don't know how to balance that out. Like, I was like, oh, okay, this seems cool. Maybe I'll do this. This seems cool. You know, maybe I'll do that.
Right.
And, I mean, things are fine, but if I had to go back and change something, I would have definitely been more focused.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair enough. And you bringing that up, it reminds me of, and I look forward to having a conversation with somebody from the Jewish community, because when you think of a Jewish family who has a bat mitzvah or a bar mitzvah, that is with the intention of all of the family coming together and usually giving a financial contribution to that child's future.
Yes.
That is not amongst most cultures.
No. I don't even know that quinceañeras go that far.
Agreed.
As much as it's
more
coming
celebration
and a coming out.
Yeah. But if everybody pitched in towards this person's future, what a foundation they've started based from their own community and family. Like, it's amazing, but most people aren't given that.
No.
Yeah. Did you have more?
Well, I was just gonna say, and it's just the connections. There is like their position, their inherently born position in society puts them way in front of the 8 ball.
Yes.
Right? And I have interviewed young people, smart, did their crap in school, earned their degrees, I'm not discounting that. And I've watched people slide into jobs that they do not have the experience for because of the relationships.
Yeah.
And it's just, and it's interesting. And if you are not really, as a person of color or a minority, really kind of owning your destiny early on, because that's what you bump up against later in life.
Yes.
So, and you can't control that.
Right.
So you've got to make sure that you're on the track and you're doing the things that you to put you in the best competitive place possible.
Right.
Because you don't have, most often than not, this college fund or this coming of family to set you up for success, or these familial relationships or business relationships to open a door for you that you have not earned.
You're up against people with backers. So for you to get in that door, you better have something to bring to the table.
Because a lot of times they walk in doors and they haven't earned it.
No, they're just open.
They're just open.
Absolutely. The politics. What did the talk consist of when speaking to your son and daughters about being Black in America, and what age did you start this conversation?
I don't know that I had it with the girls, but with my, and again, so my girls are very fair skinned, and they all have the same father, very fair skin, like curly hair, and my son is chocolate, right? So he looks more like his father. And never had any kind of those conversations with them, because again, like, that hasn't been my experience. Like, hey, this is what it's like to be a Black female in America, other than, like, don't let anybody disrespect you. But I just think, like, as a woman, don't let anybody disrespect you, don't let anybody take advantage of you, be safe, know your surroundings. I think that's like a female thing. But for my son, it was definitely when he started to drive. Like, if not even, would I do it before? Probably nothing stands out before, not to say that there wasn't conversations before, but if I had to pick a moment that I remember, it was, when he was like 15, wanting to get his permit, wanting to drive, and just saying, hey, this is how you have to behave behind the wheel, this is how you have to behave if you're ever encounter a police officer. We lived in a really nice part of Southern California.
Primarily white community.
Primarily white community, and the kids could walk to school, and a very community, wonderful feel, and so didn't have too many conversations prior to that because I didn't feel the need. And obviously when they were younger, they were transported everywhere. But when there was this level of independence started, I definitely had a conversation with him about that. And I'm remembering I had a conversation at work. Do not recall how it came up, but I remember my response to the people being, I bet you when you turn 16 or your nephew turned 16, I think it was after Trayvon Martin when something happened, and it just spun a conversation at work, which I try to stay away from. But I was like, I bet you your parents didn't have to have the conversation with you on how to engage or interact with people who are fearful of you for nothing else other than your blackness and your skin tone. Like, that young man shouldn't have had to behave differently walking down the street just because he was black and somebody else didn't understand his existence. Like, that still to this day, that gets my blood boiling. And when you are a black male or a brown male and you are behind the wheel of a car, you should not feel fear for your life with a police officer. And you know, like that your white 16-year-old counterpart is like, hi officer, like doesn't even think about it. So the fact that we have to have conversations with our children about things that are just like absolutely normal and rites of passage and like step towards independence, and I have to tell you how to behave and interact and make sure your hands are visible and make sure you make eye contact. I just don't know that in households across the country that non-minority families are having those conversations the way I think every minority family has that with their kid.
Yeah, I've never had that conversation. I don't remember my brothers ever having that conversation. And one thing that I think is so important is, especially with the idea that, you know, your son was raised in a primarily white neighborhood, which means white friends. I think it's so important for, like, you as a mother or any other mother to have the conversations with their parents about knowing what my son is going to deal with, or what your son may encounter by being in the car with my son. Like, I feel like the parents of the friends also need to have an education on what might happen if your son and my son get pulled over together.
They don't want that conversation.
Tough
Most
shit.
people don't. Your husband told me about a situation that happened with his son. They were driving, and Brett was in the passenger seat.
Yes, I remember that.
And one of his good friends was driving. He was black,
Dark skin.
Yeah, and they, I don't know. I think it sounds like it was something minor, like let's just say no traffic, no turn signal. It's not like they were doing anything wrong. They pulled him over. No, I have that reversed. Brett was driving. The friend was in the passenger seat. They got pulled over, and the cop asked the friend for his ID. And Brett said, "Why are you asking him? I'm driving." It's moments like those that have to happen. I don't know how that went down. I don't remember the whole story. But I champion him for saying, I'm the one behind the wheel. I'm the one you pulled over. I'm driving. Why are you asking the passenger for their ID? It's that kind of stuff.
It's that kind of stuff. And so I feel like, you know, unprepared, unfortunately, another child or another person might not know how to handle that situation.
But in their defense, it doesn't even cross their mind, Amber, because it's never been a part of their experience. If I was a white parent and I lived my white American life, and my child had a person of color friend, I don't know, and I'm trying not to think with the Michelle mindset, but just like an average person. I don't know that I would think to go, oh, I wonder what I should be aware of when John is hanging out with Jamal. Like, I don't, it just would not cross my mind because it's never had to cross my mind. I've never had to think of how my child moves and interacts in this world. That doesn't mean that necessarily I would not be open to it, but I've never had to think about it like Jamal's mom. Always has to think about it. So
so in having this conversation, I want there to be that opportunity for discussion for black mothers to be able to think, maybe I could have a conversation with Tommy's parents or whatever, just so that they're aware, so that we can just talk about it, so that there's not that, you know, it's like my grandson is black. So I think about these things all the time. What is his experience like? I think about what he wears when he walks down the street. What is he perceived as? What should he wear? I mean, it's just so many questions, so many conversations.
That actually just reminded me, a month ago, we went somewhere as a family, and we were going to Inglewood, and we were getting ready to walk out the door, and I said, Lana had a blue t-shirt on, I remember. I said, wait, what are Inglewood's colors? And then I forget what the answer was. I think he said red.
Yeah.
And I was like, maybe you should just go change your shirt. And I was like, oh my God, it's 2017. Yeah. We're like going to this outdoor amphitheater play to watch a extended family member's child in this play. And I'm walking out the door going, wait, what are Inglewood's colors? Like, are we good here? And
yeah. And I have to say, as a white Hispanic mixed woman, I actually think about that. Like, if I'm driving down the street and I'm going through Inglewood, that crosses my mind. I am the wrong color. Like, you know, so it's just it's a reality.
Yeah. But it's different when you're a black male, because I don't want anybody walking up asking him what set he's from.
Right.
If he's in, you know.
Yeah.
Just because of the color t-shirt. Or like a blonde-haired, blue-eyed surfer kid, like going to Inglewood, which would make like the forums in Inglewood. There's a lot of reasons to go to Inglewood, right? And would never have to think about it. But guess what? Those individuals in those communities that align with whatever gang affiliation they align with aren't going to ask him why he has that.
Take one off the street.
Why he's wearing that red or blue shirt, because he's blonde hair, blue eye, and he's not. Yeah. Right. So it's different. It is different.
It is different. You're so right. It's very different. What is the biggest thing that drives you crazy about your non-black friends?
Just ignorance.
Yeah.
Ignorance. I have like amazing friends of all races. I will, and most of my non-black friends have multicultural families or date outside of their race. So when I say they're like woke, they're pretty woke, right? Yeah. And even they're passionate people about social justice, and even in that there's a lot of ignorance. And one person in particular is coming to mind, and when we have the Woman at Work challenge, she's a female, blonde hair, beautiful woman, and she wants to make the leadership female position challenge at work the same because we're women, and it's not the same. It's not the same, you know. And where she will say, and I'm going to actually give her a little bit of this because she is an attractive woman. She said, well, a lot of people discount how I got here because she's beautiful, right? And they're like, how did you get here? And I'm like, I'll give you that. You probably do deal with that. But people don't overlook you in a room. They don't dismiss you in a room. And I have absolutely observed that and felt that on a couple occasions. And people aren't, oh God, now stuff is, how it's flooding back, right? People, so I have a lanyard. Sorry, I'm jumping all over the place. I have a lanyard, and it's my UCLA lanyard. And somebody asked me at work one day when I had it on, because we have badges and we always have to have a badge on. They're like, you went to UCLA? And I was like, why the fuck would I wear a lanyard that says UCLA if I didn't go to UCLA? I mean, like, I guess I could just like the school, you know, but like I wear a Pittsburgh Steelers ones because everyone knows that I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. But it was the way they asked the question. They're like, and I'm like, well, I literally said, why else would I have it on? And they're like, oh, so like you graduated from there? And I'm like, yeah, it actually really happened. Something else just came to mind too. And my point in that conversation, my point with that example and the woman that I was talking about is nobody would ever question her if she went to UCLA. She might get shit because she's an attractive woman. Yeah. Oh, how did you get here, right? But she's smart. She has an MBA and she like knows her shit, right? But no one, if she had a UCLA lanyard on, nobody would ask her. They'd be like, oh, they would say, oh, that's your alma mater. Yeah. They wouldn't go, you went there. Yeah. So, like that kind of stuff, when we want to, I'll just say when women want to make the being a woman in America the same thing as being a black woman in America, I have a huge issue with that. I think it's Malcolm X that said, look, the black woman is the most disrespected person on this earth. And it's true. We have white males. We'll take a black male over a white woman. Let's just look at Hillary and Obama, right? Yeah. because it's gender first in this country, right? And I'm not saying that the black man and the white women are like by all means equal. Like it's probably does this a lot, but men will accept men before they accept women, and we'll just use basic superficial examples that we were willing to elect a black male before we were willing to elect a white female. And I know people have very polarizing reactions to Hillary, and that could be a huge part of the narrative. I'm not dismissing this, but again, I just want to speak generalities. We're willing to do that. So you have white male, black male, white woman, black woman. You know, when we go all the way back to slave days, black women were already discounted because of their race. Mm-hmm. They were already discounted because of their gender, and they were also property. Mm-hmm. A white woman has never been property.
Yes.
So you could do what you wanted with my ancestors, and without regard. You could rip I could bear a child in the barns or in the backfield, and you could rip them away from me. No white woman ever had her child, I shouldn't say ever, again, generalities, had her child ripped from her. So you could use my body how you wanted because I was your property. You know, white woman has never been someone's property like that.
Right.
I mean, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, even when white women back in slavery days had babies, we nursed your babies.
Yeah.
You know, so you would so it's not the same. Yeah. And so when I have those conversations with my female friends who are of not any minority, like there's a lot we share in common, absolutely, as being women. But our plights are not the same. How we walk this earth are not the same. I also think when people, I do love when non-minority people want to join the conversation, but they really should educate themselves first. They should understand systematic racism. Mm-hmm. You know, they shouldn't say like, well, my family was poor and we overcame it, and like, look how good you're doing. It's like that, like sometimes you really want to slap that person because it's so much deeper than that.
Yeah.
And this country is great, and this country does give a lot of people afford a lot of opportunities. And yes, your family was poor and you made it. And yes, we had a black president. Like, yay.
Baby steps, but really,
it's not the same.
Mm-hmm.
So you really should understand like the history, the systematic history. You should understand about gerrymandering districts and Jim Crow laws and reparations, I think that's the correct word, and how they didn't happen. And you should really, really understand, like I get like
what still exists.
And what still, I get like slavery was a long time ago and people should get over it, but like you should really educate yourself more before you join the conversation. Mm-hmm. And you should not discount my experience when I say it to you.
Yes.
Just because it hasn't been yours, or try to make it similar because they're not the same. Mm-hmm. So when I'm having my conversation with a female at work about, yes, we have the same challenges in this particular environment as females because it's like a heavily male-dominated environment. There's not a lot of women in leadership. Our voices get overheard. We're actually not even present for key conversations because there's not a female leader. There is another layer of experience that we do not share.
Yeah.
And quit trying to make it the same.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Don't try to make it the same. It's not.
Yeah. Understood. So I just have one final question. What does being a mother mean to you, and what is your role as a mother?
Oh, everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to me, like, that's the most important thing that I do.
Mm-hmm.
I do not take parenting lightly, probably to the frustration of my children. But like, it's the greatest gift you have. If you carry this human being in your belly, and you create it, and you birth them, and you nurture them, and you raise them, and you hopefully do a good job doing all that, and you like send them out into the world to hopefully do better than you did. Like, it's the hardest job. It's the most, I shouldn't say most, but it's a highly underappreciated job. It's a highly taken advantage of job. But beyond any kind of success I could have at work or financially or in any other way, like that, like having good human beings walk this planet is the most important thing that I am responsible for.
Yeah.
You know, doesn't matter like where I live, what I drive, how much I make, if
Yeah.
I'm in a leadership role,
Right.
if I'm not,
Right.
if I was famous, if I was not.
Yeah.
It's like being a parent and raising good human people that love each other and love this world and are, you know, good heads on their shoulders, kind, integral. Like, it is everything.
Yeah.
Like everything. I don't know how people can take it lightly.
Yeah. Well, I can say from knowing your 3 children that you are a success
I hope so.
because you've raised 3 amazing kids.
Even though they hate me sometimes.
Well,
That's okay. They get to hate me.
parenting, and I only know it from a step parenting perspective, but parenting I have found is a very thankless job.
Yes, it is.
And it doesn't really get recognized until I think our children have their children.
Yes.
So you just sit back.
Take the hits. As they
Yeah,
come.
yeah. Well, thank you for taking the time to talk with me.
Thank you.
I hope
Thank
we
you for
covered-
being willing to have a conversation.
Absolutely, and I look forward to continuing our friendship and having these conversations. And I hope this inspires more people to have these conversations with people they know, people they love, and people they don't know, maybe people they don't love, and learn more.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about it.